Well, we're talking about overflow parking that the zoo has used for the last 30 years, which is the northern part of the green spot. We park up to 600 cars on it. We only use it 61 times a year. 14 of those days are Free Tuesdays. 13 of those days are Monday through Friday mornings when school children come on formal school trips and their parents and guardians come to share the experience with them. So we have a large influx of cars to join the children in the mornings. Then we have 14 Saturdays, most of them in the spring, 4 Sundays, and 11 of them are 11 days are really nights. So 11 nighttime events. We use the grass as an overflow. So 61 to 65 days a year, 80 to 85,000 people. So that's a significant number of people. And in looking for another solution, you have to factor that information in. One, that's a lot of people. So that's a lot of cars. And they come very quickly. So they come within a 90-minute period. We don't use the grass throughout the day. We only use it when all of the traffic, all of the spaces are finished. So it's usually like on a Saturday, it's usually at 12 o'clock or 11:30. So so you have to be able to park 600 cars pretty quickly. And that's the same with Tuesdays. That's the same with the school days. So those are two parts of the issue. So you have to find capacity, and you have to be able to fill it quickly. So it makes the problem pretty difficult. And put that forth as an option. We have a very robust maintenance center. We manage 78 to 80 acres, and we have 4,000 animals that we feed every day. So we have a large, that's where our commissary is. So all of that area would have to be cleared, and it's a 3-acre parcel. And we proposed moving our maintenance over to that general services area where there is already infrastructure on the north end of it near the firehouse. But that was not accepted for several reasons. There's a move to move a museum in there, Eggleston Museum. And the Eggleston Museum supporters did not want to give up that maintenance area. The second issue was very similar to the one we spoke of earlier, is that some of our vehicles, not all of them, but some of them, like the trams, would have to move through the park to get from the zoo to the general services area. They're not over-the-road vehicles.
Okay.
What the zoo is doing today started out 25 or 30 years ago with a compromise. We had adequate plans, the city had, because they rented at the time, to have a large enough zoo parking lot constructed so that there would be no need. It was the neighbors that asked to shrink the parking lot and park the overflow on the green spot. So we're put in this situation by a compromise that occurred long ago, and unfortunately, as we've talked in this interview, there's not a whole bunch of easy alternatives. I assure you, if there was even difficult alternatives that were doable, they probably would have already been done. So the proposed solutions that we talked about today aren't even all the solutions that have been proposed. There's been others proposed by both sides that haven't got through. So. Never plans. That was mentioned by people. That's almost as difficult as building a parking garage that looks like mountains. We have fuel dumps, we have trucks, we have hazardous materials that anything is possible, but to build a garage on top of that would be very costly. Parking garages, just regular old standard parking garages like at Overton Square, are 15,000 a space. So if you want to build just a straight 600 car parking deck, you're talking $9 million. If anything that you add, what you asked me would probably double it, if not more. So it would be closer to $20 million if you tried to do something like that. Plus, it would be an enormous structure.
Right.
Because that area is a very small, narrow area. So you already were going to have 4 levels. So to add maintenance under that, and of course we have large vehicles that are oversized. So your first floor would be basically a fireproof warehouse is what it would be underneath the deck. So that I don't think is feasible. And to move it just to the general services area would be close to $2 million. You know, we have freezers that have hundreds of thousands of pounds of fish and meat and different frozen materials in it. Those are very expensive items that have to be moved. We have a commissary that services the food needs of all the animals. That would have to be moved. We have hay and feed storage. We have all of our mechanical equipment. So we're not talking about an easy, you know, pick up everything and move it over there. You're talking about building new structures and redoing it. That's probably the most difficult option because of the just the amount, the tightness of the land. Areas that have been proposed are the ones on Prentice Place, which backs up to the people that live on Overton Park Avenue. That's been a real difficulty with that. That's actually a larger parcel of land, but you would have to move the road to the south so that you'd have a buffer between the backs of people's houses and the parking. So it wouldn't be cheap. And the neighbors, and understandably, would fight it very, you know. The general services area, which is on East Parkway, which is a 16 or so acre parcel at the south and east end of the park.
Mm-hmm.
That has always been talked about as a possibility because there's easily room for 600 plus cars. The problem is the only way to get those 80,000 people from that area to the zoo is to tram them through the park on a designated route with no other traffic, and that has been a real sticking point. The OPC does not want to have trams through the forested area, even though it would be on the paved roads. So that's been one solution that's been talked about, and that's the issue with that. There have been several parking studies that wouldn't solve the problem, but they found different ways to increase the amount of parking spaces throughout Overton Park. So anytime you increase capacity, then you lighten the burden. So not a total solution, but probably a helpful start. The unfortunate thing is that Overton Park doesn't have a lot of parking to start with. So most of the parking that has been recommended is new parking areas. We have a series of proposals that we're putting together and looking, because the zoo, when we started rebuilding the zoo, we started with cat country. Cat country is 25 years old. So zoo exhibits have a life expectancy. So sometime in the future, we're going to have to redo exhibits that we've done. And there are exhibits here at the zoo that are 100 years old. The birdhouse is 100 years old. The aquarium was built in the 1950s. The round barn is 80 or 90 years old. So we have plenty of things to do to maintain the high standards that we have over the long term. And all these exhibits are very expensive. Garage. I told you earlier in the interview that we use it 60 to 65 days a year.
Right.
That means it's empty for 300 days a year. We've talked to a lot of parking consultants, and they say you don't need a parking garage because you don't have enough use for it. Now, not only don't we have enough use for it, but we're unable to finance something of that magnitude. It helps that we have people park in the surrounding neighborhood, especially on Tuesday, all the time, and we have for a long time. So we're fine with that. But no, not to replace it. But if people choose to park in the neighborhood, that's fine, and you know we're fine with that.
Oh, okay.
So but the capacity is not there.
So 600 cars couldn't just park in the neighborhood, even if they were shuttled in.
The shuttles don't work because the shuttles are moving through the traffic.
Okay.
And most of the people that park in the neighborhoods park within walking distance, and most, if all of them are parking on the south and the west part, as opposed to the north part. The neighborhoods in the north part don't get that much. We don't want to take up the entire greensward. We don't want to eliminate other uses of the greensward, and we've been very careful. If you see people near the cars, look at the rest of the greensward and you'll see that it's empty or there's plenty of space for everybody. So it's not like we're eliminating other uses of the greensward. We're very careful. It's the parking of last resort.